Welcome to today's Explainer. We are diving straight in because today we're taking a sledgehammer to one of modern society's absolute favorite pieces of career advice. You know the exact advice I'm talking about. We're going to decode the source material's fascinating breakdown of what they call the passion trap, this invisible psychological cage that might actually be the exact thing holding you back from real success. We're going to completely dismantle this beautiful sounding idea, sweep away all the debris, and take a look at the highly structured, highly effective alternative, the mastery mindset.
So ask yourself, is following your passion actually sending you up for career suicide? I know, it sounds crazy. We are fed this fundamental lie from the exact moment we enter the education system, right? Our parents say it, literally every movie protagonist embodies it, and almost every commencement speech repeats it like this sacred mantra. It sounds absolutely beautiful. It feels right. But according to the deep dive in our source material, this universally accepted advice is actually designed to make you fail. See, it creates this wildly unrealistic expectation that your daily grind should feel like some cinematic montage. And when it doesn't, well, you assume you've made a catastrophic error. We really need to question if this advice is actually just a beautiful trap.
Section 1. The Passion Lie and the Pinnacle of Stimulation.
Okay, to really understand why this lie is so incredibly dangerous, we have to look at the environment we're operating in right now. As a society, we are living at the absolute pinnacle of hyperstimulation. We're in an era where millions of people literally cannot watch a 30-second clip without some gameplay video running underneath it just to keep their brain occupied. It's wild. So in this hyperstimulated environment, expecting to build a lasting career purely on the feeling of passion isn't just unrealistic, it leads directly to what psychologists call identity foreclosure. This basically means adopting a dream simply because someone else told you it was yours. Think about all those people who suddenly decide they need to be a digital nomad or an esports pro just because they saw a highly edited, hyperstimulating highlight reel online. When you feel lost in your career, you aren't missing some magical internal spark. You are likely falling victim to this fabricated, inherited dream. You've been sold an idea of what success should feel like, and the very second reality doesn't match that constant high, you think you're failing.
Section 2. The Biology of Burnout and Why the Lie Fails.
So why exactly does structuring your career around passion fundamentally fail? Well, it all comes down to the harsh biological reality of how our brains actually process these feelings. Biologically speaking, passion is not a permanent state of being. It's a spike. Think of it like a firework. It's this massive surge of dopamine, that new project energy, that makes the first 3 weeks of a hobby feel absolutely amazing. But it is inherently fickle, and it's endlessly seeking novelty. A career, though? A career is built on bricks, not fireworks. It takes years of repetition. It requires managing constant, agonizing friction and engaging in complex problem solving. If you try to build a long-term career, which requires immense structural integrity, using the totally unpredictable fuel of a dopamine spike, you are essentially building a skyscraper on quicksand. The feeling naturally vanishes the second the work gets difficult, and the whole foundation just collapses.
And that biological mismatch leads to this incredibly evocative concept from the source material, starve maxing. Because the human brain is so deeply addicted to novelty, people will completely abandon hard, necessary work the exact second that initial honeymoon phase wears off. Imagine buying a super expensive, top-of-the-line acoustic guitar. First 3 weeks, you're obsessed, you're going to be a rock star. But the minute your fingers start to blister and you realize that learning chords is intensely frustrating, repetitive work, what happens? You shove that expensive guitar into the back of your closet. You sit around waiting for that magical feeling of passion to just magically return, and in the process, you absolutely starve your own potential. You quit right before the actual, meaningful growth happens, just because the cheap dopamine spike faded.
Section 3. Competence before passion and flipping the script. All right, so if passion isn't the foundation, what actually is? The reality of high-level success is honestly the exact inverse of what society teaches us. We need to completely flip the script here. And we do this through the competence-first framework. Step 1 is to master a skill. You absolutely do not start with passion, you start with competence. Step 2, because you now possess a rare, deeply developed, and valuable skill, you gain leverage, respect, and wealth in the marketplace. And finally, step 3, you experience passion. Really let that sink in for a second, because it is a massive departure from everything we're taught. Passion is not the starting line. It's the reward for enduring the friction of mastery. You don't scour the earth to find your passion and then get good. You get aggressively good at something difficult, and the passion naturally follows the mastery. The crucial equation here is that mastery leads to aura, which ultimately buys you freedom. Think about the people who are at the absolute undisputed top of their game, like an expert car mechanic. They can listen to a failing engine for 15 seconds, identify the exact worn-out bearing, and tell you precisely how to fix it. Now, they didn't start out with some innate burning passion for head gaskets or squeaky belts. No way. They got overly, stubbornly obsessed with the mastery of the process itself. They endured the blistering friction. When you master a difficult skill to that degree, you generate this undeniable aura of competence. People respect you implicitly. They need you. And that world-class mastery ultimately gives you the freedom to dictate your own workflow, charge your own rates, and completely control your time. That freedom, earned through grueling mastery, is where true career satisfaction actually lives.
Section 4. Mastering deep work and becoming self-contained.
So how do we actually pull this off? How do we stop seeking external validation and become entirely self-contained? Well, it requires shifting from theory to actionable execution and mastering what's known as deep work. And to do that, you have to understand the devastating 30-minute distraction tax. Every single time you simply glance at your phone, you pull your brain out of a state of deep focus, and it takes an average of 30 whole minutes to get that state of concentration back. Think about how painfully relatable this is. The second our brain feels a microscopic, terrifying ounce of boredom, our hand instinctively twitches toward our pocket to grab our phone. But every time you cave to that twitch and look at a notification, you're taxing your brain and actively destroying your ability to master a complex skill.
To combat that instinctive twitch, you need a highly tactical strategy. First, you have to consciously use boredom as a tool, not a disease you need to run away from. Second, you must artificially lower your fun baseline. This concept is just brilliant. If your brain is constantly, endlessly stimulated by short-form content, group chats, and video games, then sitting down to learn a hard, boring skill is going to feel like physical agony. But if you deliberately remove those hyperstimuli, like if you do a dopamine detox and just sit in a quiet room with absolutely zero technology for an hour, you reset your baseline. Suddenly, reading a dense textbook or practicing a complex coding language feels wildly engaging by comparison. You're essentially tricking your brain, making the actual friction of deep work the most stimulating thing in the room by default.
And when you're actually ready to apply that focus, you use a specific biological hack, the 90-minute block. You just set a timer for 90 minutes. This isn't a random number, by the way. It perfectly aligns with the human brain's natural ultradian rhythm. You do not need to grind for 10 agonizing hours straight to achieve mastery. You need 90 minutes. But, and this is absolutely crucial, it has to be completely uninterrupted. That means the phone is physically in another room, noise-canceling headphones are on. There is exactly one single task open on your desk or your monitor. You embrace the physical reality of this biological hack, and you guard those 90 minutes like your success completely depends on it. Because it does.
Section 5. Discipline over impulse and reclaiming your future.
Success boils down to discipline over impulse. That right there is the ultimate thesis of the source material we're covering. It is the single deciding factor between a life of deep satisfaction and a life of constant, wandering resentment. I mean, imagine looking back on your life 10, 20, or 30 years from now. Imagine the devastating realization that you sacrificed your true potential, your future wealth, and your ultimate freedom. And why? All because you were too hooked on cheap, temporary hits of dopamine to get really incredibly good at something that just felt a little boring at first. That realization should terrify you far more than the prospect of hard work ever could. You have to stop chasing the fleeting feeling of a firework and start deliberately, painstakingly building the permanent skill.
So I'll leave you with this question. What boring skill are you going to get obsessed with today? Honestly, stop waiting for some magical, cinematic passion to fall out of the sky and find you. Pick a valuable skill, embrace the agonizing friction of being bad at it, master the mechanics, and let the passion become the inevitable byproduct of your undeniable competence. It's time to put the sledgehammer down and get to work.